Hey girl, it's Kaya. How are you? I am glad to be here again. Um, I hope you are doing good. I hope your week was wonderful. I hope that you were productive or at least semi productive. I hope something good happened in your life this week. Um, I'm not gonna lie, I don't know what I kind of want to talk to you about today. Is probably like one of the topics that I wanted to talk about from the get go. But I've battled, I'm not gonna lie, and it's just probably the enemy, but I've battled with feeling like I had enough to say or feeling like um, I'm completely in a space where I can address this topic. But before we get too deep, um, like I said, I hope your day was good. I mean, and I hope your week was good. Um, I got on my jammies. If you're watching me on YouTube, I have on my pajamas, and I just feel like it's very fitting for what we're gonna just be talking about today. Because we need to be as relaxed as possible, and this is like some real deep girl time topic. Um, Something that maybe you won't want the whole world to know or the whole world to know how you feel, but I'm here apparently to tell the whole world so that you don't have to. Maybe. Yeah. Today I have on my pink pajama set. I believe that I got this from Walmart or Target, but this was like maybe six, no, not six, maybe 3 years ago. Me and my daughter did like a in-home sleepover, girls hang out Valentine's Day thing. So I just thought it was very, very fitting, especially like the vibe of what our sleepover was. So I just feel like it was very fitting. If you watch me on YouTube, you see my pajama set. Also, um, I have a question. I have two questions. I'm gonna ask you a question in the beginning, and then I'm gonna ask you a question at the end. So my first question for you is: what is 3 words that you would use to describe yourself? 3 words that other people might use to describe you. Um, I feel like one of the most common things that any human being, but girls have so much pressure with is what do you identify as, right? What makes you you? This makes you special. This is something you have that nobody else has. And it's just like this ongoing, like, what do you have? What do you have? Who are you? Who are you? Who are you gonna be? Who are you gonna be? Where do you fit? Where do you fit? Um, but if I had 3 words to identify myself, it would be empathetic, loyal, and creative. And then if you walk up to a random person, not a random person, but somebody who know me, 3 words that are, or 3 things that I feel like they would say to describe me would be a mom, a teacher, a wife. There's so many other things, of course, that I could use to describe myself, or that other people may use depending on what level they know me at to describe me. But those are a few things that I feel like people would use. So before we continue, go ahead and let me know what are 3 words that you would use to identify yourself and 3 words that someone else would use to describe you. Um, and then my second question is, what happens? Oh, I lied to. I'm not a liar, but sometimes my brain be going 350 miles per hour, and I forget that I have more than what is coming out my mouth. So I technically gonna have 3 questions, but these are like my 2 starting questions. So the thing about the 3 words, and then my other one is after you think of those words, what happens when that all fails. When those words no longer apply to you, maybe because you're transitioning, you're going from one age to the next age, or one season of life to the next season of life. Maybe you having turmoil in a friendship, in a relationship, with a family. Maybe you failed a class. Maybe you got kicked out of school. Maybe that job no longer suits you, right? So those words no longer describe you, right? Those words never or no longer identify you. What happens when those words fail? Or you don't live up to them, or you're hard on yourself and it doesn't go as pictured? Who are you? And how do you find her? How do you find new words to identify you? How do you find who you are? How do you explain who you are when those words no longer describe you? That can be, that can sound very minute, or that can sound very broad or not personal. But when you really think about it, like if you are very pretty and all your life someone tells you that you're pretty, you're pretty, you're pretty, but something happens where half of your face get burnt, right? That is going to mess up with your identity and what your thought of what you believe that beautiful was, or that you believe that pretty was, right? Um, and so it can be that deep. Or if you grew up being smart, and then you just fail because you have some things going on in life, or you work your butt off. Because sometimes that happens. You work your butt off more than the people around you, and then the other people are getting the praise that you worked for. What happens when that happens? Like, what? How do you get back you? How do you define you at that moment? I feel like growing up, and like I said, I feel like, of course, all humans in general are going to have things that come against their identity or mess with their identity. But like, I feel like girls, the pressure that we put on ourselves, women, the pressures that we put on ourselves, the expectations that we put on ourselves, the expectations and the pressure that we put on each other, that society puts on us, and it comes from all angles. It's mental, it's physical, um, it's spiritual. It's like you are expected from birth to be so many things at once and so many labels at once. And it could make you want to just scream, because it's like, who am I? Like, I'm trying to figure it out, but I got 20 million other people trying to tell me. I feel like growing up, you definitely might hear some things like, oh, you're so tall. Or like, oh, I wish I was tall like you. Or maybe you get told that you bad. You just bad. you just walking around being bad. Maybe you've been told that you're a crybaby, because I get told that all the time, because I am a crybaby. But you get told that you're funny or goofy, that you need to be a good daughter, you need to be a good sister, you need to be a good person, a good student. Um, you need to be more girly. You need to be not be so girly. You need to take care of your hygiene and worry about all that, which is very important. But the pressure of it starts early. Um, you get told, maybe that you're funny, or that you're fun, or you're smart, or like, what even about like baddie culture? Growing up, and I thank God, but growing up, it was definitely expected to be cute. And then, of course, I feel like there was definitely always this pressure against women's body or the physical appearance of women. But oh my God, could you imagine right now being a little girl? Like, it almost made me emotional. Like, I get a little bit teary eyed. But could you imagine growing up in this baddie culture that we have? Like, this pressure to be a baddie is crazy. Like, you are 11 years old and you're worried about your hair to the fifth umpteenth power. You're worried about the lashes, and not because you want to be girly, but because you want to be a baddie. You get what I'm saying? Like, could you imagine? That's insanity. Could you imagine that the world's pressure currently right now is to be sexual, to be sexualized, right? So from a young age, you like, do I look sexy enough? Do I look appealing to the male gaze? Like that's the drive. And it comes off as women empowerment, but it's really not. It's like low key, like visual prostitution a little bit. But like at the same time too, like it's also like women do need to feel confident in themselves and they shouldn't feel directed by a man gaze. But then everything, your physical appearance is, yes, it makes you feel good about yourself. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't care about our physical appearance. So don't get me wrong. But our identity, right, resting on being a baddie, eh, girls, we're so much more than that. Ladies, we're so much more than that. Like truthfully, we are better than that. But I feel like, and I feel like, did I say I feel like a lot? And I'm just gonna say that because I want y'all to know that this is like my personal experience, and I feel like also too that I'm just hanging out. So if I'm just chatting with you, I'm just hanging out with you, I'm just shooting off the top of the dome of like what's, what I think. Um, but every girl, you know, I feel like even at age 5, when you start school and you have to decide, is the other little girls coming with their hair pressed? Is Bo still in? Like, I don't know. Am I allowed to wear dresses? Because if I do, then I need to wear shorts under it because you don't want your butt hanging all out. Or when you get age like 9, 10, I feel like that's when you really start personalizing who you are by your family, or close family friends. Like they kind of influence how you see yourself. And like all those things that I named, goofy, smart, fun, right? These are things that more than likely your teachers, your family members, your close family friends, if you go to church, your church members, these are things that these people are telling you, and you literally start adopting those things. And then in age 5, you might, be like, oh, daddy said that I was pretty. My dad said I was pretty. But about age 9 or 10, if somebody constantly talking about, you got bumps on your face or something like that, you like, okay, I got ugly skin. I'm just a girl with ugly skin. And then it starts tearing down who you are. So from like age 9, you start trying to battle and struggle with, am I what people say I am? Like, am I this bottle of words? Like, am I as bad as they say I am? Am I as smart as they say I am? What proves that, right? You start thinking and calculating all that stuff. And then by the time you get to age 13, you're coming to your end of middle school, but middle school is a whole nother pressure, right? Getting through that middle school age and seeing where other girls are at the stage of their life and what their parents allow them to do or not do. Like, does that mean that their parents have a lot of trust in them? Do that means that I'm not loved? Does that mean, that I'm worthy? Does that mean that, like smart girls have to do this, or dumb girls have to do this? Like, you know what I mean? Like, am I responsible enough? Am I working hard enough? Am I proving my identity? Am I doing that? Then you get to age 16, and then a whole nother identity situation gets put on you because now you're smart enough to put 2 and 2 together, to think for yourself, but your frontal lobe, like that frontal part of your brain, is not developed. And so while you can see everything, you can't fully make sense of everything. So you're trying to make decisions with like a blinded view. And so you're like, oh, I know I'm cute, right? Oh, I know I'm cute. Oh, I know I'm smart because of my grades, right? But you don't know, or you're not putting together what it takes to get there, or what impact that is having on you by taking on some words that other people have given you, right? You don't know how to decipher whether, I should believe what my family say. Should I believe what my friends say? Should I be like my friends? Then you go into 18, 19, where you're trying to navigate and identify yourself as a grown woman or a legally adult woman. What does it mean to be a woman? Am I woman enough? Like, there's always, even to like a certain extent, me and my best friend would be like talking about what our style should be. Like, oh, I just feel like my style not mature enough. Oh, I feel like my style is not giving business woman. Oh, I feel like my style, like I don't have my clothes put together. Oh, I don't always have my hair done. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and then you get to 25 and 30 and 45 and 50. And every single time there's a new stage of identity crisis. And it sucks. It really, honestly, it sucks. That's the root of it all, right? That's the meat of it all. It really does suck to feel those things and to constantly feel like you don't know who you are, or constantly feel like you are changing. But the reality is you are changing, right? You are growing. But check this out, because I feel like I need to get to the meat of your identity, the root of your identity, the core of your identity. And when you really think about it, I don't know, this is like my top advice, right? My top advice to myself, because again, like I said, I really struggled with hitting on this topic, and I feel like it's this topic is so huge that, like every topic that I feel like you chat about with your friends or your family, it's gonna need to be talked about multiple times with multiple different people and all that type of stuff. But I feel like I wasn't feeling worthy to address this topic or throw this topic out, because I still currently am just coming out of a transition season, just coming out of a season where I didn't know who I was. I didn't know where I belonged. I didn't know where I fit in at. And it sucked. It sucked real bad. And I started believing how people treat me or how people interact with me or what people said about me. I started believing those things as my identity instead of all the work and all the love and all the positive words that have been spoken up over me up until this point. Let's take this into consideration. Instead of adopting those words, let's think about how the core and the center of your identity rests on our creator, which is God. If you do not rest the core, if you do not believe the core of who you are is our creator, is God, you're gonna always find yourself in an identity crisis. Now, I'm not saying that you might not have to change or transition or navigate again, right? Because that's practical. That's life. But to be shaken so hard at your core that you cannot tell who the person you was looking at in the mirror, then you are saying that my creator, my God, is not the core of who I am. I am the core. Like all these lists of things that people give me or these titles that I carry around are my core. Check this out. So, if you say that's true, right? I want to challenge that, okay? Because, for example, or not for example, truthfully, Jeremiah 1 and 5 talks about, and I'm paraphrasing, right? because we just chatting. But Jeremiah 1 and 5 talks about how he knew you. He knew you in your mother's womb. Your mother is baking the flesh of who you are, right? The skin, the bones, all that, right? God is the creator of it all. But your mother is baking that, right? But what God does is say, this is my child, right? This is her spirit. This is my daughter. And I'm releasing her to this body that is being baking inside your mother. And I know that she's beautiful. I know that she's smart. I know that she's capable. I know that her worth is not dependent on other people's worth of her, right? He knew you from your mother's womb. So he knows that regardless of the mistakes that you make, regardless of, the things that you say, this is my daughter. This is the spirit that I put inside of this body. Then, honestly, the whole Bible is filled of confirmation of our identity is in the core of who we are should be in God. Jeremiah 29 and 11, which is a common repeated verse, right? For I know the plans. So, your plan, right? You're making choices for your plan based off what somebody else called you. You changing your plans and you're changing who you are based off how you feel about yourself. But if there is plans laid out for you to prosper, for you to not be harmed, anything that attaches itself to your identity that is giving you harm, that is not prospering you, it don't even make sense. It's not giving what it's supposed to give. It's not your identity. It's not the core of who you are. If it is harming you, if it's causing you confusion, questioning, if it's making you feel less than, those words, right? Another one, Romans 8 and 15. And again, paraphrasing. But not given the spirit of fear, but the spirit of adoption. Now, this verse can be translated in many ways, right? It can be talked about in many ways. But I don't know, when I hear just that little piece right there, I think about how a child may be scared because their home is uncertain. Like, if we taking this into like a literal sense, right? They're unstable. Fear, right, is dark. Fear is unstable. Fear is scary. Fear is whatever. But then they get adopted by someone who loves them. They get adopted by someone who speaks life into them. They get adopted by a family who spends a lot of time together and makes them feel warm and makes them feel safe. That is what the core of you belongs. That's where the core of you belongs. Not given to 20 different things, but the core of you has been adopted. Can you believe that? The core of you, so your identity, right, should be, from the womb, I'm that girl. Right? From the womb, I'm that girl. Like, my plans is laid out. I'm prosperous. This is right? I'm prosperous and nothing will harm me. And then on top of that, nothing that doesn't make me feel warm and safe and loved and cared for and stable. That is not my identity. That is not my identity. And the only thing that can provide those things is God. God needs to be the core. Now, let's get real. Okay? Because I am beautiful. And I would tell somebody I feel that I am beautiful, right? I can identify as that. Those things don't go away. But I want us to think of those things as extensions of who we are. I'm a daughter of God. I am child of God, right? And that makes me beautiful. And I am beautiful because the creator said, oh, yeah, let's make her beautiful. Think about how my profession is teaching. I'm a teacher. I feel like teaching is something, not all the paperwork and not all the injustice of our pay, but I feel like that is where I'm supposed to be. Majority of the time, I feel like I am called here. But that is the extension of it, right? It's being a teacher. But the core of why God has me there, I believe, is to help my girls, my young girls, my ladies. Like me and my female students, we locked in. Like if you ever sit down and talk to me, if I ever got a chance to pour into you, I'm always speaking positive. I'm always promoting progress in you. And I'm always trying to figure out how I can help. And I feel like that's the core of why God has me there, right? So if my teaching license get taken, or I get fired from my school or from the county, baby, that's not gonna bounce me because my assignment is helping young girls. So God might have me teaching somewhere else. God might put me in another job where I have younger ladies on staff because I'm getting old, and I'm there leading them. 4 or 5 girls that's on the staff with me, or someone older than me that needs comfort. So if teaching fails, I don't lose my identity. I don't lose my identity. And I'm speaking this as somebody, like I said, that still struggles with it and still finds it difficult and hard and I don't know, like all the things. Because it is a day-to-day thing, because the reality is the world, society, life is constantly in our ear. It's constantly on our shoulder doing that and telling us who we are and who we should be. And we also have to fight against our own flesh of feeling prideful, and feeling like I know who I am. I know who I am. Like, that that should not be your identity. Like, you should not be bouncing around talking about I know who I am. Like, we got to be humble. God calls us to have humility and to be humble. But it wasn't until this past year that I really realized, like, I had kind of wandered off my core being God's daughter. My identity, the core, the middle of who I am being God's daughter. And when certain things started to fall in my life, and when I went through postpartum depression and undiagnosed, but I'm pretty sure postpartum psychosis, I couldn't get out of it because I had identified so much of my identity into motherhood. That's a whole nother topic that we gonna get to one day in life. But I basked and I walked pridefully in motherhood. And I was challenged this year. Like, I was challenged in 2025 going into 26. And it shook me when that was not laying out how I visualized it. That wasn't laying out how it should have been in the space that I needed. It was hard to get back to the core of who I am. And I never strayed away, don't get me wrong. I never strayed away from knowing that God loves me and knowing that I'm his daughter. I just wasn't centering that. I had not been centering that fact. And I have not been centering that regardless of what, he's still good. Regardless of what, he has plans for me to prosper. And I'm going to have faith. And I'm going to speak faith. And I'm going to walk in faith. Because the plans is for me to prosper, right? The plans is not for me to be harmed. From my mother's womb, he already knew them that I would love being a mother, and that I would get this strong desire and this strong heart for motherhood. He knew that. So why I'm tripping? Why I'm tripping? I don't know. I don't know. So my last question before I hop off, because I feel like I've been running my mouth for like 30 minutes in your ear, and I know you gotta go, is what will you identify as, and what will be your extensions? Who are you? And what are those extensions of who you are? How do you identify? And lastly, this is a question that I want you to actually respond to if you have time in the comments. What are some practical ways that you bring yourself back down to baseline when your identity has been shaken, or something that even is an extension has been shaken, to reaffirm the fact that the core of who you are is God's daughter? How do you bring yourself back to that? My answer to that for me would be centering myself, literally stopping what I'm doing and taking breaths. Sometimes I go shh. I do it for my kids too. But then just laying down, or laying your head down, or resting your head on your hands, to where you can just close your eyes for a second. Acknowledge how you feeling in the moment. What happened that shook that? And say, God, I'm your daughter. And my identity is in you. But this really, 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 really is shaking me. Help me center my identity in you, and give me the ability to have faith in the extension, that the extension will work out, or have faith to let go of the extension. And that it would be my answer to that question. Let me know in the comments what you do that's practical, that's quick, that's fast, that the girls can do. Whether that's writing something down, whether that's listening to a certain song, whether that's closing your eyes and spinning around, drinking a drink of water, or whatever, and help each other out. Thank you for the community. Thank you for coming to hang out with me. And I will see you next Friday. Bye.